and I worked in one of the offices in Bristol. I worked for the guy that became the mayor of Bristol in the end, George Ferguson, and he used to walk in with his red trousers and his yellow shirt on. I thought, nah, that's not a good look. So I thought, he's not going to inspire me with his dressing.
Hi everybody, Gavin, Coyle, I'm the Gaffer, back again. Brilliant guest, Paul Richards is MD of GUR Build UK. Well over 30 years experience, some might say 40 himself, in the construction industry space. And what we love to get here is people that are innovators in the space of construction. We love talking to people that, you know, have seen all of the changes in construction down through the years and, you know, have been ahead of the curve, or at least have tried to be ahead of the curve in terms of what's coming down the pipeline next, and has the broader view of construction. So sometimes we get stuck into a rut where we're so concentrated in the business, we're not looking at the bigger picture about what's happening within the sustainability of the overall industry. And as we know, a lot of people are feeling and suffering today from the effects of not getting paid, not having a proper business plan, not having the resources, and just not having, you know, a structured, sustainable program for their business. They may need to actually change their business in year 2 or year 3 because something's coming down the line. And these are some of the topics that I want to talk to Paul today about. Is, you know, he's seen it, he's delivered it, he's been at the high end in terms of managing businesses, but he's also here to talk to you and to the viewers about, you know, what's coming next, and, you know, what we need to do to prepare ourselves to be, you know, a healthy, sustainable industry. Paul, welcome to I'm the Gaffer. We're delighted to have you here today.
Thanks, Gavin. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak to your audience. I really do.
No, it's all our pleasure, 100%. Just give us an idea in the background of Paul Richards. You know, where did it all start?
So I'm 60 this year. That's probably, I know you don't believe it, but I am. I really started when I was about 14 as a kid. Offsite timber construction. You know, I didn't know what I was doing at 14 really. And really it compounded throughout the years. I realized it. I was I had a sort of a practical, I can build stuff, I can make stuff. Probably the best way. Weren't very good. I wasn't academic at school, although I was taught technical drawing, and that had a serious aspect throughout, constant remaining throughout my life, really. The fact that I learned how to draw in a straight line. I know it sounds daft, but when you learn how to draw a straight line, you're surprised where it starts and where it finishes. And if you've got a sort of a technical mind, you can draw straight lines. You'd be surprised what you can design and where it can go.
So in terms of coming out of college, like, what was your degree then?
Oh, I didn't. No, I did go college. I left school at 15. I was a young lad at school. I was young at school. I was only little. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I never had a clue, but I could draw. I didn't know that would be part of my career. I could draw. And then what do? You start knocking around. I had a Saturday job. I can remember this, and they took me on straight as soon as I was starting to become a school leaver. They took me straight on, and they took me on full time, in sort of a timber framer. So I was making timber frame buildings when I was about 14. And then the careers guy came round and said, "Look, you know, have you tried engineering?" And I went, "No, but is it warmer than the place I'm working in?" so they took me to a technical college in Bristol, Sandwell Technical College. So I'm from the southwest of the UK, lovely place where they make cider. That's a bonus as well. But I went to technical college and I learned and I studied engineering. The only reason I went there is because it was great on the opening day. As you probably know, when you're a kid, you don't know what you want to do. And I can remember the very first day of the opening college, walking around and saying, "I don't know if engineering's for me." And then we went to the canteen. This is always funny. And after the other college was hairdressing college, and it's full of women. So I thought, this is right up my street, this engineering lark. So that was it. So I studied engineering. I did whatever I did short through that period, but it gave me again the foundation skills that you need to understand how to make stuff and how to build stuff. So I could do timber framing. I was doing that as a kid, quite easy to do, not really that technical. Then I studied engineering, And then I went out, I must have been, 17-ish, 18. And then I went out into the real world, tried to find a real job. Ended up on construction sites like everybody does, in between jobs or whatever you're going to do. I was an oddier. Not many people know what that is. So I was the one carrying the bricks up the ladder, as a young lad in the rain, in the puddles. When everybody else was inside, keeping nice and warm, I was the one going up and down the ladder in the rain. Never really caught on that, that I've always been that one. But it's that understanding of, and this is really why I'm passionate about construction. I've been that person. I've been that lad. And it's the years on and the people you meet and the avenues you take and the business opportunities or the opportunities that come your way. And then do you jump on them or do you just stay in your sort of your track and go down the normal route? Unfortunately for me, I took every opportunity that came my way and went for it. And that was really it. That was the start of it. I was on the house building side of it, and that really wasn't for me. It was raining, muddy. And I shouldn't say it, but it was rather dumb. The way we built houses back then, 40 years ago, was rather dumb. Putting bricks in a puddle, really wasn't for me. But that's nothing's changed there. And as you know, Gavin, coming to get getting paid on a Friday after you've worked all, in the wind, in the rain, and the bloke turns up in his van, winds his window down, and gives you a little packet with not a lot in it. It's sort of demoralizing. So I understood construction, I could draw, I understood engineering. And a friend of mine said to me, "Oh, why don't you try commercial engineering?" That was it, commercial construction rather. And I said, "Yeah, go on, I'll give it a go." And we went up to Glasgow, built some jobs up in Glasgow, and I got hooked. The commercial side of construction for me is much more structured. It's got, the guys are better paid. It's in a much more cleaner environment. It's a faster environment as well. And that's really where I cut my teeth into construction, commercial construction. But I always wanted to bring those techniques down back into the house building industry. And it was never allowed in the UK to bring sort of those commercial techniques and materials and productivity back into house building. No, it just wasn't needed at the time. So I started my first business when I was 21. I know I'm jumping across this, but I'll try and fit it all in. Started my first business when I was 21 building. I had 12 guys on for me. I was still a little 21-year-old wet behind the ears guy. Most of my guys were in their 40s, and they didn't 40s and 50s. They didn't really want to listen to this 21-year-old kid, but I was paying them, so they did. So I have an ability to respect people of all ages, from the young and the old, and I think that's what's been lacking in the house building industry, that lack of respect. And I've always wanted to bring back a little bit of respect to the construction industry, because I think it's one of the best industries I've ever worked in. It's got the best people, the most infectious people you're ever going to work with. If you're having a bad day, somebody can cheer you up, and there's a lot of bad days to be had on a construction site, but somebody will always cheer you up. And there is money to be earned. When the sun comes out, it's a lovely place to be. But, I'm in England, and as you know, sun don't come out very often. It's how can we make construction attractive? And I'm missing an awful lot out. But during my times, I opened my first factory when I was about 23-ish, I'm guessing. Only a little thing, only a bit on the back of a farm somewhere in a farm shed. But again, I started manufacturing. I was buying plant and equipment and machines. Started making components to build my own structures. I was designing and building stuff for some of the big pub chains and some of the big hotel chains. I was 23, 24, and but I had the knowledge, so I knew what could be done. The years of commercial construction, really, that was what I cut my teeth in, and I learned an awful lot with those people. They taught me an awful lot.
But you seem to have a very strong entrepreneurial skill set. Where did that come from?
I think it's because I know things can be better. And I don't know why. Sometimes I kick myself, but when I can see things need to change, I'll do something about it. I'll try and do something about it. When I was young, nobody listens to you. I mean, when you're 21, say, "Oh, why don't we try this?" They're going to say, "Go away," But really, we all improve ourselves every day as we go. It's in our nature to try and advance ourselves. And for me, when I was a kid getting wet and not getting paid as a 17-year-old on site in the rain, that I thought that's not for me. I need to do something. But I'm not scared of work, and that's what a lot, and that's what I respect about the construction industry. You know, if you're scared of work, but you've got to build something, it don't get built. You know, you've got to get on with it. Wind and rain, whatever, you've got to get on with it. If you want to take wages home at the end of the week, that got to be built. That got to be finished. You know, if it don't get built, you're not getting paid, and that has a knock-on effect. So it's, you know, what did I learn in the commercial construction? I brought down back into the domestic environment, a domestic house building environment, and it was the speed. It was the bit more of the technical ability, because I have got a technical background, and it was just bringing those sort of small, to start off with, it was small changes, but you could see that they were making advances, and then suddenly the builders were copying me, and that's really what gave me. When you've got an old bloke stood next to you and you're over there building and he's looking over to see what you've done, and he asks you then, because they don't in the beginning, they don't like you in the beginning. They probably don't like you for the first couple of years, but then once you break that down and they get to understand that, hang on, this young kiddie ain't an idiot, you get chatting to them, take them for a pint, and you say, look, I don't want to be your age still doing what you're doing. I don't want to be doing that. You know, I didn't know what the world was going to look like. I didn't know if construction would ever change. But you do look at your elders and say, we all look for role models. We look at, can I copy that guy's success? That's really what it is. We're looking for that role model. I did, and luckily I found them. Found a couple of wrong role models. I can remember when I was a kid, I went into a drawing office. I spent a short time training as an architect, and I worked in one of the offices in Bristol. I worked for the guy that became the mayor of Bristol in the end, George Ferguson, and he used to walk in with his red trousers and his yellow shirt on. I thought, nah, that's not a good look. So I thought, he's not going to inspire me with his dress sense. And then the sun come out and I went back out on site, and you know, it's just the way you do. You try things. If you're good at something, you stick with it. And fortunately for me, I'm good at some things, more practical, but I'm also.
Give us a sense of some of the examples of how you were different to the ordinary house builder at the time. Were you doing offsite construction, modular, you know?
Yeah, we would. So, God, this is back in the 80s. I was making stuff in factories. I was banging frames out in portal frames and sections in a factory, and then taking it to site really as a kid. So I wasn't ever interested. I can't lay a brick. So let's get a few things straight. Not ever been interested to lay a brick. You know, I've had lots of brickies work for me over the years, and some brick, you get a good brickie, you know, they're worth their weight in gold. But bricklaying's hard work. I mean, you know, unfortunately for me, most of the guys that I worked with when I was a kid aren't here anymore. You know, they passed. They had a hard life. Some of them made it to their 40s, and I talk about this. And the ones that made it to their 50s, you know, they weren't happy. You know, they had aches and pains, you know, of places that shouldn't have aches and pains. And that's got to change. And that's really what I left the construction industry. I talked about it just before we came on. So part when I was about 30, I have these every 10 years. I didn't know I was doing it, but every 10 years I set myself a goal. And when I was 30, I got a way of looking at things differently. And I invented a product when I was 30. And luckily, I had enough money to sort of take it to the next step. I thought, well, shall I just shelve it or shall I go for it? So in parallel with my other business, I went for it. But that took 10 years to actually get it to market. So what a lot of people don't understand about ideas, bring, you know, the initial spark, that's great. That's the easy part. Getting your product to market is really difficult, especially when it is game changing. And you don't know that until you try it. You don't know how people are going to receive, you know, a new change. And then you find out that there's industry pushback because they don't want it on the market. We don't know that. If it's the first time you've ever done it, you don't know that until suddenly you've got a game-changing idea. You know it's good. You take it to a guy and he goes, no, I don't want it. You go, and you learn. Yeah.
I made that mistake. I was so passionate about a particular service or product. I built it, spent a lot of money on it, but I didn't start with the customer in mind. I started with my own bias, that I believed that this was a product for the market and that it's needed. And then by the time I brought it to market, the market was saying, no, actually, we're okay as it is. It was a massive lesson.
Because in our own bubbles, it all adds up. You know, that's the reality. And I see that in innovation all across the world, and I speak to a lot of innovators around the world as well. And when they talk about their product, I know the gaps, I know what they haven't done, and I try and say, look, have you done this? And a lot of them don't want to hear it, because they're usually at such a sort of a financial crossroads. Really, a lot of innovators, when they look for help, they've already spent everything they've got, and that's very difficult. But we work in bubbles, and I talk about that a lot, because I found that in my head it made sense. Everything I was trying to do made sense. But as I take it out to the industry and talk to in the real world, they go, idiot, and that. But you've got to experience that. And luckily, I was young enough when I first started. I started my first business at 21. There was nobody starting businesses like I was at 21 back in the 80s. Not really. You couldn't get any money. They're not going to lend this young. I took my dad to the bank. Dad, pretend you're me. That's the sort of thing you got to do. But the young kids don't get respected correctly in the UK. We don't get correctly respected in the UK. I spent some time in Germany. I talk about this as well. And the apprenticeships in Germany, they're respected. To become an apprentice in Germany, it's an honor, because they're sensible enough to know in Germany that in a minute those kids aren't going to be kids. They're going to be young adults, and then they're going to be adults, and then they're going to become pensioners. And that cycle of life has to continue. And those young kids you start out, they're the ones paying your pension when you come to claim your pension. So look after them in the beginning. Give them the skills. Give them the right techniques. And that's been missing in the UK. And I think finally, and you talked about earlier, where do we want to go with this? And I'll talk about where we want to go. Finally, I think that's getting addressed in the construction industry. I don't know if you heard the spring statement yesterday, where in the UK, you might get different channels to us, but on English telly, we got, she mentioned that she's going to put 600 million towards construction skills now, and build 10 centres of excellence. And I'll talk about that later on, about my involvement in that sort of movement. But yeah, I was that 14-year-old who went to a 17-year-old still getting wet and not getting paid. And it was like, I wouldn't want that for my kids. So it's about, and I never did it for all the young lads who worked for me over the years as well. I treated them with respect day one. I would make them the tea. That's only because their mums never taught them how to do it. That's probably the truth behind it. But I would give them a little bit of respect. So I'd make sure they had decent gear. Even before work clothing came in, I made sure they had decent tools. And I was trying to train them skills so they could actually earn money, whether they were going to stay with me or not. I was trying to teach them the skills that they could go out and earn money for themselves. And fortunately, they did. But I don't know if you know this, but back in the 80s, 90s, it went against taking on young kids. The whole movement went around safety, and like you said, you're in the safety environment, and it went against the ability to give kids a try. Come and work for us for a week, see how you work out. If it don't work out, it don't work out. You can't do that anymore, especially today. And that's Saturday jobs. I don't know if there are such a thing as a Saturday job in construction sites anymore for the young kids to come on.
Hi guys, as you're enjoying this podcast, I just wanted to take a few seconds to let you know about my company, Coyle Group. We're not just another safety recruitment agency. We're your partners in building a safer future. With over 25 years of experience and more than 1 million hours of safety work completed, our mission is clear. Provide top-tier health and safety contractors tailored to the unique needs of your project. We also carry out on-site construction audits. From wind energy to power stations, utilities and engineering projects, our global reach and specialised expertise ensures your operations are not just compliant, but exemplary. For more information on how ensuring safety and sustainability of your products using our team of HSE contractors, visit coyle-group.com or click on the show notes or video description now. I've also put a booking link into the description for you to click and have a one-to-one conversation with me. Now, back to the podcast. Enjoy and see you soon. I'm glad you brought that up. I have a big bugbear. I think there's a missed opportunity between the ages of 14 to 17 that you can't probably wrong terminology, but you can't bring in even on a small scale, some, part-time work for some of these kids, male, female, whatever, just to get a sense of the environment of construction, even it doesn't have to be on site. It can be in the office, you know what I mean, working with the digital marketing guy or working with the procurement team or whatever else, and maybe doing the site visits as the site manager's going around just to say, look, here's this. You know, the legislation in Ireland and in the UK restricts, you know, because it's seen as a like modern slavery that we're bringing kids. Like, no, you're bringing people in and opening up their eyes to what they possibly could become in the future, and we're missing the trick. I 100% believe we're missing the trick.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm on the same page as you, because some kids grow up. I mean, like I said, I was 14, but I was a little 14. Some kids were like, they looked like they were 18 at 14. They were in the pubs getting beer, passing it out the window to me. But the idea is some of those young kids, they grow, they really do grow quickly from being teenagers to being young adults.
It's definitely that 14.
Yeah. If they haven't got an idea, it might not be the right career for them at that age. But let them have a go. Give it, you know, show them construction. Not in the ring, because they won't come back. But show them on a nice day when the sun's out what it's like, what construction could be like.
Yeah, within a safe environment, obviously under supervision and with a bit of instruction and training, so that they understand the risks involved. But like, you're not putting them onto a chop saw or a consaw or, you know, a jackhammer. You're letting them breathe and absorb the environment of construction, and letting them see, hold on a minute, there's a city going on in front of me of just really talented people all communicating and dynamically working together. And that itself is like, that's infectious, as you know. When that momentum is right on a building site and all the conditions are right and everybody's getting paid, there's no better place to be than a construction site.
Oh, it's and the laugh, and it is, it's the camaraderie. I didn't even say it right, but it is. I mean, you can have, I said it earlier, you could be having a bad day, somebody would come along and cheer you up. I mean, most of the blokes I worked with, they were a right laugh, really good at their job. They would get their job done, and we'd have a laugh. We'd take the mickey out of each other. That's really what it's about. But get the job done, and there is money to be earned. And I think for me now, there isn't a better time to get into construction now. I mean, if you want to talk about where it's going, where construction is going, where the part I'm playing in it, I actually think there's never been a better time to get into construction. So I would say to anybody listening, if their kids are considering it, get them into it. But get the kids to do their research first. So they can do that now. They can go online and see where they think is going and back up where I've been trying to push change now for over a decade. So since about 2012-ish, I got involved in a retrofit for the future. So our government ran the Retrofit for the Future program. They did 100 test houses. They took existing housing stock of various types and did what they call a deep retrofit. So gutted the houses and then refitted it back with future sort of tech. This is 2012. And from that, I got called in as independent assessor. My mate was one of the guys running the program for the government, and he said to me, "Come and have a little look." I'll just tell him straight. I said, "Look, if you want me to come here, I'll tell you straight." I said, because really, retrofit for me is a really difficult. I don't know how they can run it as a business and make money, because it's
so many variables.
I think it's a thankless task to retrofit somebody's house. I think it's a thankless task.
The unknowns of the unknowns.
You go in, you take some plaster off, and you have a look. You go, oh my god, you're going backwards.
Oh my god, you've got mold. Oh my god, who done the wiring? La la la.
Yeah, and I think, some people don't want their house touched. You know, so retrofit for me isn't.
So for me, sorry to cut across you, Paul, but I'm still amazed at how they can actually price those jobs effectively. Like, when you don't know what's behind the plasterwork, what's behind up in the attic, you don't know what's, you know, behind the walls, in the floors, and then you've got a living family living in the house at the same time. Like, how the hell did they price time and materials on those projects?
I'll tell you how to do it. People who've never done it are pricing it. People who don't know the industry are doing it. Most of the people advocating for retrofits have never done it themselves. Go and do it yourself. Go and do it yourself, then put a price to it. And that's where it falls down. Because they wouldn't. One on a document, they can say, oh yeah, look, I can make this add up. Say, yeah, great, that adds up. They go and do it, because it won't add up when you do it. I went to one in Bristol just before Christmas, run by the Green Register. So I was trying to advise green architects. There were 200 architects. I was doing webinars for a couple of years back, about trying to get them to talk to industry about developing the right products for the retrofit industry and the new build. Because for me, I was in the house bashing industry as well. You know, not only were we working on the new build, we were working in the house bashing, the retrofit. But back in those days, it was called house bashing. You take an old house and you bring it up into sort of modern standards. You give it a facelift. But I can assure you, you know, it's not easy business. You know, it's very difficult. You don't know what you take the floorboards out. You don't know what you're going to see. You know, you don't know what you're going to find. And there's very little. I mean, there's not in Bristol. There's not a housing type I've not worked on, and there's not an area of Bristol that I've not worked in. And I've said that. And I was at a retrofit. Our Bristol, our mayor has said, and he gets up and champions. And I'm not belittling the mayor, but what does he know about retrofit? You know, come on, why is this guy up there telling us put a heat pump on it, put a heat pump on it? And I'm going, you know, you're insulting me, mule mate. You're insulting the industry if I stood up there and you get people standing behind him. Now usually this is a rant, and I'll shut up in a minute. But they usually stood up because they're funded by industry to try and sell you something, and that is like, hang on a minute, we're here. I can see a load of builders here looking at their future. Is their future in what you're saying it looks like? And I'm telling you, no, it's not, lads. No, it's not. Let them tell you what a real retrofit's going to cost you. When they're out there saying, oh, 10 to 12 grand to retrofit a house, I'm saying, for what? What's that going to be? That's the VAT on a house. I said, you get zero, because I've been, you know, ranting about this for an awful long time. If the government was serious about retrofitting houses, they zero the VAT straight away, 20% straight away. That will drive the movement. That 20% saving will push the movement to retrofit. They will buy an heat pump. They will try this stuff because they are saving 20% straight away. Until that happens, it won't go on mass. I hear people, they stand up on the stage and they go, we got 28 million houses to retrofit. That's one every 30 seconds or something. I'm thinking, shut up, mate. I've heard that over the last 12 years. Just shut up. You're insulting us. So I went to one just before Christmas and I apologized. And I did apologize afterwards. So I asked them, the panel, how much to retrofit house. They were talking about houses they were retrofitting in North West area of Bristol. And I said, how much to retrofit the house? They didn't want to answer me. So I asked them again. And they mumbled and mumbled. I said, no, just shout me a figure. And they gave me an honest answer. And I respected them for it. 80 to 100,000 pound a house. And I went, thank you very much. That's more like what it's going to cost. Now, who's got 80 to 100,000 pound to make their house look exactly the same as it is now, but save a bit of energy? Because that's really what it is. The house will look the bloody same. Yeah, but they might save a bit on their fuel bill. I said, no, we're addressing this wrong. And that's really why I haven't got time for retrofit. And that's it in a nutshell. Too expensive.
I don't want to bash the retrofit industry because there is genuine people that are actually doing it right, I believe. But I just, again...
Oh, point them my way. I'd like to see it.
The maths doesn't add up. Like, unless you're on an hourly rate, how the hell can you do a fixed price lump sum contract for a complete unknown of the unknown?
Well, I just want to know who's paying for it. You know, you tell me who's paying for it. Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay that sort of money to tidy up their house to look the same as it did before they started? Because that's really what you're doing.
Yeah, and I know people in the heating and plumbing industry, and I know personally, like from the heat pumps point of view, like a lot of plumbers can't do a heat pump. They can't put it in. They can't put together the calibration of it and the certification of it. And then all of a sudden there's issues with the heat pump. So what they're doing is they're trying to stretch the existing staff to actually, you know, put in all the extra bits and whatever else so that they don't have to bring in the specialist, so they don't have to pay the specialist. And that's just damaging the reputation of heat pumps as an example. So that, like, you know, heat pumps are getting a bad rep.
It's not a heat pump. It's the house they're fitting it on is the bad rep. I say it's like having a puncture in your tire. Then the puncture first, and then you're away. But when you're putting a heat pump in a house that's got more holes in it than a colander, you're going to struggle. So it's going to struggle. So we call it fabric first approach. Address the fabric, and then you may realise that you can have a smaller heat pump because your house is so thermally efficient. If it's a terraced house, you only got two outer walls and a roof. That's far easier to do. But I don't want to go in. I don't want to go down the conversation of the retrofit because, again, I'm not anti retrofit. It's got to be done. I just don't think it adds up.
But is there no sort of trade-based retrofit association where you have to actually come up to a certain standard or grade in order to classify yourself as a approved retrofitter? I know there's approved lists.
There are some sort of certification for retrofits, but it's like a trust mark thing, isn't it? I don't know. to me, if somebody's just done a 2-week course and got a certificate with a nice printed logo on it, that ain't good enough to work on my house. And I just don't, as a business model, it don't stick. So me, if I was looking at a business, would I support a retrofit? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't, because if you can have two houses that are the same, but they're not the same, and that's really what the retrofit model is based on. They're saying, look, so many houses like this typology, we're going to have this standard tea cozy building that we're going to fit over the top. And I'm saying, no, keep your tea cozy for your teapot. Let's look at a different way of doing this. So
your model is zero VAT. Put a zero VAT.
You can't retrofit a house with products that haven't been designed for retrofit. They're trying to use materials that have been designed for other uses and trying to shoehorn it into a retrofit program or a product. That don't work. You've got to go out to industry and say, look, this is what needs to happen. Can you help me develop the products to do that? And they say, no, because the market's not proven for it yet. Now, I went out, so I part of this Retrofit for the Future program I was on. I think it was 2010, 2012. Out of the architects' practices there, I reckon there was about a dozen of them that had something, that could be scaled up, that could hit some serious numbers. And I'm talking about products that aren't organic. And this is where again, I'm going to upset everybody. And this ain't what I want to do with this interview. I don't want to offend anybody, but when people talk about 28 million, it's easy to say that number, but they actually know what that looks like. That's a lot of houses. So you ain't going to do that with some sort of, I don't know, sheep's wool or a knitted blanket out of some Himalayan, I don't know, goat herder's back. It ain't going to happen. It's got to be products that can be mass produced, can be accessible, is what that's key. It's no good if it's really good, but nobody could buy it. It's got to be accessible. It's got to be part of your standard palette of materials for builders, and the builders got to learn how to work with it. They got to know how to what their tools look like. They got to know the safety elements of a lot of these products, because a lot of these products are new and it's not been proven. Are these products safe for these young lads to work with? And that needs to be proven as well. There are some clever products out there, but again, I love aerogel. I don't know if you've heard of aerogel. I love aerogel. I think it's a game changer. I think it will solve everything. So I've been chatting to them for gotta be 15 plus years. No, yeah, gotta be. I hate to think now.
What is that? Is that a product, Paul?
It's a material that was developed in 1930. 1930s it was developed, and it's an insulation. It's basically an insulation product, but it's not only is it the product what it is, it's what the product can be used, it can be added to. So it's also an additive. They can add it in paints. So a lot of them are using it as a nano coating. So they're actually adding it to paints. So in hot climates, they're adding it to paints to deflect the heat, as well as to keep the heat in. In Ireland, they use it a lot in cement board. So they've got it. So in a standard 10 mil cement board, so they use it for window reveals. Window reveals are probably, if you're talking about cold bridging, I'm getting technical now. Really, when you can insulate a lot of the house is quite easy to insulate, but when it comes to small areas, it's difficult. So they can use aerogel as that, because it's got the thermal qualities are the same of 75 mil. A standard piece is the same as 75 mil of a Kingspan or a solid insulation. Really good, but it's only 10 mil. They use it under floor a lot in sensitive buildings where they can't insulate the floor up with 6 inches. They can put a layer of aerogel down. It's extremely clever.
It's like a moisture-resistant resin.
No, it's a gas. They compress a gas. It's clever. It's easier for you to look it up than it is for me to try and explain the chemical, the science,
the composition of it.
But when you see it, you say, "Oh, this is clever." They use it on a space shuttle. You won't burn it. It weighs nothing. You won't burn it. But it's costly, and that's really where it falls down. I think really, I was speaking to somebody about 6 years ago, and they were making it in France in a 3 mil blanket, so you could insulate your walls with it.
Yeah, layers.
Really thin layers. You can insulate your wall with it, and that would be equivalent to, I think, about 50 mil, 60 mil of insulation. Well, that to me, you put that in the right application, you got yourself a winner there, and it's not imposing on that. I can remember during the retrofit time, we walked into a house in Kensington, opened the front door, and the wall, the hallway was stood out. You walk in a little bit, and then it stood out where they'd insulated 6 inches of the wall. And I thought, what the hell are they thinking? And it's applications like that, really. And I think what our government needs to do is to invest in the right type of innovation.
Okay, talk to me about that then. Like this is where the rubber hits the road. You're the innovator. You're the guru. Educate us. Where's the construction innovation? I'm a small to medium builder. I'm not on doing this BIM stuff, and I'm not like that techie with software. I have a successful 4 million turnover business a year. 10 or 12 lads working for me with a few contractors. How can I be an innovator, Paul?
You can't afford to. You can't. You just said it. You just said exactly the barriers of why you won't do it, because you've got 10 or 12 guys on. You've got to keep them working next week. You can't risk changing something that is already a formula that's working for you. You can. So somebody else got to do it, and that's really where it comes in. You've got to support somebody else trying this. You carry on with your business, but keep your eye over there and help that guy develop what he's doing. And that's really what our government is doing. So it did it on the school and hospitals program. So I'll talk to you about, you probably don't know this, but our government has got what they call catapult centres. So it's a high value manufacturing catapult centre. It's where all our clever people, that's where they put them. Go on, you clever. We lock you up in this little building. So what they do is we've got them dotted around the UK a lot. I don't know what they've got in Ireland. I'm pretty sure they have. I think there's 10 dotted around the UK. They were originally set up by the aircraft industry. And what they did is because what we're trying to do in construction has already been done in other industries, by the way. It's done in the car industry, it was done in the aerospace industry, and now finally it's happening in the construction industry. But we ain't getting the money they had.
And military as well, yeah.
Yeah. So what was happening is it's evolving. It's evolving because of all what's happened, the COVID, the cost constraints, the price of materials, the price of labor, the inactivity of construction sites, the borrowing the money to build with, it's all compounded. And some people are saying, we can't build these houses anymore. It just don't add up. Because at the end of the day, you build a house for 300 grand and, your client has only got 150 your stuff. You ain't going to sell it. So it's how can we use technology and innovation to be much more productive and much more efficient in the way that we build, the way that we spend our money, and then how we allocate our time on site. How can we make construction sites work for us? How can we say where are our cost savings? Really, that's it. Where's our money lost every single day? And that's where I focus. So it was. I went to back in the retrofit time. I was chatting to the architects and I said, look, I visited, I don't know how many houses, let's say 50, 60 of the 100 test houses. And I could see a common theme, common pattern running throughout all of them. I recently just come back from Canada, where it's bloody cold. I mean, over in Canada, when it's cold, it's cold. So luckily we don't have that over here. But I walked into a house that was being built in Canada and it was warm straight away. I thought, and I said to the lads, I said, where's the heating for this? And they went, there ain't no heating. I went, what do you mean there ain't no heating? This is genuine, mine. I said, what do you mean there ain't no heating? He said, no. This house is so well insulated. It's coming off of us working and in our machines going on. And it wasn't a heat, but it wasn't cold. You walked in the building, you could feel that it wasn't cold. And I thought, this is incredible. And I'm not a lover of the way that Canadians build houses or the Americans build houses. I spent time in America as well. And I'm not a lover of the way they build houses. It's not how British build houses, and that's the difference really, and that's where what really reignited my interest in getting back into the housing industry, because I was fed up with the housing industry. When I hit my 40th, that was it. I was getting out of it. My 40th birthday, I said to my missus, "We're leaving. That's it. I'm getting out of the house building industry. I've had enough." It's not changing. I was seeing more kiddies coming through, not giving a damn. Is probably the best way, about the way they were respecting themselves, respecting their fellow workers, respecting the jobs that they were doing. And the client was allowing it. The client didn't really care. The client was getting a cheap job. And I thought, this is wrong. Because that client's selling that house onto a young family that don't know what a good house looks like or a bad house looks like. And they're buying a bag of rubbish, really. So I thought that was fair. And there's no point in wasting your time and effort. So as I said earlier, I invented another product and I ran that in parallel. And when I was 40, I said to my family, look, I'm going for it. Well, I'm still young enough. If I mess up, I can come back. And I tried to conquer the world, is probably the best way of saying it. I went over to America, went over to Canada. Yeah. No, I wasn't that smart. My pockets weren't deep enough. You need deep pockets. If you're going to crack a market, you need deep pockets, or you need somebody to help you crack it. And I managed to do that in Canada. I managed to find somebody in Canada that realized what I was trying to do and could see the market opportunity for that product in Canada as well. I own the patents. I mean, that's something I don't want to go down the road of telling people to patent their products. I think patents have got as a double-edged sword, really. One, there's costing to protect it, and then there's one is you're limiting yourself in your ability to expose yourself to the full market by saying you've got a patent protection. You know, some people will avoid you because they think it's going to cost them. So I would say that's for another day. But it's back into the house building. It's what needs to happen in the house building, and it's what needs to change from when I was a kid, what needs to change today. And that's really, really, what you talked about. And for the small house builders, it certainly there wasn't an opportunity for them to join a program of change where you've got somebody that knows what they're doing, driving a program of change, that knows their pain points, that knows their issues. Because that's very rarely will you get a government official ever know what a construction site is. You say, oh, is that the dirty thing over on that field over there? Yeah, that's construction. So you've got to have the right people do it. Now, I was involved in the schools and hospitals program. So our government ran the biggest ever construction transformation program at one of these catapult centres in the NTC in Coventry. That stands for the Manufacturing Technology Centre. So at the NTC, they got the aircraft guys, they got the aerospace guys, they got the rocket scientists, and they wanted to transform the way they built government-built assets. So schools, hospitals, prisons were all going to be built from a standardised British-built, British-purchased, British-procured solution, really. So got all the designers together. So I was on the design. I was a spokesperson. I know because of my lovely accent. I was a spokesperson for the design team, and I had Zara Hadid, I had HTA, I had Grimshaw's doing, designing airports, designing the new HS2. I had the guys designing some of the biggest tower blocks in London, all on my team, and I was a little lad from Bristol. And it was where my strengths lie is the aircraft guys, because we were dealing with the aircraft guys, the aerospace guys, the house, not house builders, the tier one contractors, really, the big tier one contractor, the big tier one professional commercial contractors. And what we were trying to do is take the learnings from these other industries and bring them into construction. What does the car industry do that we should be looking at? What does the aerospace industry do that we should be looking at? And that was it. But and there was an issue. There is issues because we don't speak the same language. The aircraft guys, they talk, and I'm going, oh, they ain't getting this. And I'm looking around the table, and everyone's nodding, and I think, well, I must be the thicko here because I haven't got a clue what he just said. So I said to him, did you understand it? And he'll go, oh yeah. And I go, what, mate? Explain it to me, please, because I haven't got a clue. And he would break it down into the same terminology and basically changes exactly the same. But we were just using different terms. They were using words that I've never heard of, couldn't spell them. And we were talking really about construction, and I could see the lights switching off around the table as well. I could see the guys going, we ain't, we got a business to run. We can't take this on. What my role then became is I started doing workshops. So I was saying, listen, lads, tell me and I'll tell them. Yeah, this is the best way. I'll try and keep them interested in your clever technology, and I'll try and keep it in. I'll keep because they are as clever as you. The guys around the table in their field are probably the cream of the crop. They're so clever, and it was just a crossover, and we were talking about the same things. The things that they had to perfect to produce aircraft on time and cost effective, and the car industry, what the advances they had to do, and how they had to connect their supply chain, really.
But are you talking about, sorry to cut across you, but are you talking about systems and processes? Are you talking about materials? Or are you talking about all of the above?
Everything's connected. So systems, process, materials, all of it. They all have to work together. So there's no point in buying a piece of wood if you're trying to run it on a metal lathe. It ain't gonna happen. So it's you have to think process. So there's certain processes you go through when you want to design an aeroplane or a car. they do and I'll talk about materials. So they have a material drawdown selection. I don't know if you know this. So an engineer will have what they call a QFD process. So you may say, oh, I want to build my house out of timber, Paul. I'll go, yeah, fair enough. I'll say, I want to build your house out of a steel frame. And somebody else might say, I want to build it out of a concrete frame. And then we'll add it up. It's top trumps of materials, really. If you had your top trumps of your materials, you lay out your material is good for this, it's good for that, it's good for that, it's accessible, it's cheap, it's easy to work with, and that's your plus points. Well, the aircraft guys do that through a process called QFD. So if they want to build the future aircraft, they will look at what they want to try and do, and then they will look at what materials they can pick from, and then they quantify why they chose those materials. Well, we start doing that with construction. So look, we want to increase productivity. We can't take, let me give an example. We can't take, I don't know, something that is a very clever bit, but only run on a special bit of machine somewhere up north somewhere. It has to be, if we're going to do numbers, we have to have part of QFD processes. Okay, we're going to deliver these or introduce these new products and techniques, but are they scalable? What needs to happen? It's a minefield of discussions you have to have and process you have to go through to get to where you need to be. And that's why I'm saying your small builder can't do it, because they won't understand it.
The scale. It's a different scale.
Where it did work is when we started finding common ground in how did you solve this? And we were opening up. Now, what was rare about the hub, and I pat it on the back for it, is all the tier one guys started chatting, which, the competition really, but they started opening up saying, yeah, we had a problem with that as well. How did you get over it? Did you? And we're collaborating correctly. But it didn't happen straight away. It took about a year of before they realized that we're actually trying to do something for the greater good. I know that sounds a bit big, but we're trying to do something that actually this is about helping the industry, not helping ourselves, about helping the industry whilst we help ourselves. That's probably it. Now, they did the school and hospitals program, and I managed to get them to conduct a validity process on my housing system. So when I was a kid, I'm from the commercial world. I always said, why aren't we building houses the same as we build offices? Or, why aren't we building steel portal frames? Why aren't we just plonking them and cladding them around? Why isn't that done? So that was the start of it for me. 2016, I think, 2015, 16. There was a guy called Mark Farmer. I don't know if you've heard of Mark Farmer. He's the UK czar for change in the construction industry. The guy has been champion change, but he did the white paper. He wrote one of the ministerial white papers on transforming the construction. I think it's called Modernize or Die. I think that's what it was called. Most of them have died. But it was about what we need to do to transform the industry. And when I heard him speak, I thought, flipping heck, this guy is on it. Now, for me, I was only interested in housing. The commercial stuff I got bored with as a kid. It's you probably guessed it. I don't have a lot of patience, and when I build something, I want to see results. When you're building a school or a hospital, you can be working hours and hours and days and weeks. Look up, don't look like you've done anything. So I'm one of them that I need to see that. Oh, I've cracked that. We're on. So I knew. So back to modernize or die. When he called for change within the construction industry, we need to modernize the house building sector. Really, is what he was talking about. He appealed to me, and that was really, for me, that was my time to get back in and use my skills, my knowledge, and direct it at how we deliver real practical solutions to the guys on site. How do we help them make money when they ain't making money? How can we, if it's raining, how can we stop them getting wet? How can we stop their products getting ruined? And it's, okay, what do we need to do that? And that's really where I started, and I went with it. And I'll talk about, I developed a system called the Thunderhaus, and I'll get onto that. I don't know if you've seen it, and I'll get onto what that is.
So what is it?
Oh. So the aircraft guys, so if you're going to build again, from the aircraft guys, they build a jig or a rig. Now, if they're building a wing or a fuselage of an aircraft, they don't rely on the skills of that one individual to do that process 100% correct. It's a format, it's a process they follow, because they're building an aircraft. It's going to fly to Spain and further. It has to be exact. It has to be. There's no error. It has to be exact. So they have processes and jigs that enable those engineers to assemble the wings at pace. They're quick. They do about 70 aircraft a month, Mike. I mean, a lot of people don't realize this. I think they do Some of the Airbuses, about 70 of a month, so 1.5 a day, aircraft's finished. That's pretty good going. Now if you take that down to house building, how can we apply those efficiencies in house building? And that's really what it is. So I designed, so it's easy for me to reverse engineer a house. I can draw. I've probably said before, horses and cats and dogs is my easiest thing. I could draw houses. So what I do is I can take any house and reverse it to a kit of parts. I can strip it down to a kit of parts. It's quite easy. And then what I did is once I stripped down your housing typology, I can then put that into a jig on site that anybody can put it back together again. Anybody. And that's really what it is. So how can I set a factory up set a production line up in Montreal, Canada, and it was all women focused, and it was in an industry where it was really male dominated inside a factory. And I was looking at these women, and I set another factory up exactly the same time in Nice, Portugal, and it was all male dominated. And the blokes were struggling because a lot of heavy lifting and what have you. And then I went over to Montreal, Canada, and I saw these women doing exactly the same job with lifting gear, much more efficiently than the blokes were doing it over in Wales. And I thought, hang on a minute, and that was it. That was my eureka moment. And it was, these women are so efficient that I believe we should develop systems for women to build, or for women to enable women to get onto construction sites. I mean, I don't know about you, but my missus tells me how to do everything in the house. So let's get her on site doing it. And see if she's any better. She probably will be. But how can we enable house building using efficiencies that exist in other industries, and how can we bring those techniques to site and mass produce housing? And that's really what I've done. So the Thunderhaus is a tent. It's not a tent, but it's a tracked cover on site. It stops in a set position. You load your components into the rig, the jig. You bolt it all up. It makes it watertight. It moves along. 24/7, 365 days, don't stop. 3 shifts a day, 24/7, it don't stop. House building, bang, 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 bang. You can have a few of them running. I'll send you a video. You can have a few of them running on your site. But so back to, you might have said, where does change have to happen? This has to be done at a very early stage. Where I get called in normally is where somebody's already designed a site, and they say, oh, I want to use your process. I said, well, you can't. You've got an odd house over there. You've got another one over there. I don't know what that is over there. And, come on, if you want to do this, we got to start using a production mind. Start thinking, how can I be most productive on this site? And that's really it. It's so I optimize the site. It's quite easy to do. I satellite image the site, and I optimize. So I've already got your housing typology. So if I was working for you, and you were a developer, I say, right, give me your houses. What houses are your best? What's your best free bed seller? It'd say, right, and I'll reverse engineer it to a kit. And I say, right, let me optimize your site. So I'll set them out. I'll set the site out so it works with these flows. That's it. The cost savings alone are ridiculous.
Give me some stats on reduction of labor, reduction of time.
Well, you don't, and weather constraints. You can work when it's raining, and that's where the builders want. You can have the coffee going. You can even give them croissant. If they're partial to it. So it's like, how do we look after the guys? How do we create an environment that the young ones want to come and work in? And this is where it gets really exciting, because most buildings have now got a digital twin. I don't know if you know what this means. Every component is digitized. Now, on your phone or on your laptop, I've got my houses digitized. So I can look at the nut and bolt of a house. I can tell you about it, where it comes from. It's called a golden thread. I can copy that from wherever. We can order that up. It can come on site. It can be made anywhere in the UK. It can come on site, delivered when you want, like an Amazon parcel, and you carry on building. Now kids understand that, and it's how can that now? What I say is, look, lads, and this is really where I get excited, because I'm okay at designing houses. I'm okay at it, but some of these young kids have got a different mindset. They've got a different idea of what they see as a house that they want to invest their future in, and they start designing houses that suit more of what they want to do. Oh my God, they're good. Some of the designs they've seen, I've gone, I want to build them. I can't wait. Some of these kids, 14-year-old kids, designing stuff, and I'm going, okay, you're not right, but I know where you're going with that design, and that's really what I'm pretty good at. I'm okay as a designer, but I'm really good at seeing talent. Really good at seeing talent in other people, and that's what my passion is. I love helping people. If I see somebody with a talent, no matter what it is, I'm a bugger for it. I want to help them. I want to work with them, and that's really what drives me. When I see some of these young lads, even some of the old guys, in the shed making stuff, I go, How the hell do you make that? It's incredible. Some of the talent we've got in the UK is incredible. And I think I've traveled, I've worked around the world because during my R&D period, I had 10 years of R&D and I didn't know what I was trying to make. I didn't know what I needed to do. So I traveled around the world, spoke to an idiot. No, he was a professor of something. No, he was an idiot. And then you meet another guy and you think, flipping heck, this has cost me an awful lot of time and money. You can drive around the UK and chat to clever people who will give you time, and that's key to this. Who will say to you, look, lad, you're chatting nonsense, try this. And that's it. Once you start, they give you that tread, and it's incredible.
Even to go back to our earlier conversation, I think it's a fair point to say that if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years of age, if you reach out to the owners of some of these construction companies, they are actually receptive to giving you some sort of a guide or mentorship or some sort of a, pro bono support. Like I've never seen an industry like construction industry to be open to sort of give back, but people just, I think young people don't. I think they oh no, I can't talk to him or I can't talk to her, or I wouldn't know how to reach out.
No, that's an issue because they should, because you're right. A lot of people would help and they would respect somebody calling them out of the blue, say, look, I'm looking about getting construction. I've had it. I mean, I've had kids doing their dissertation at university and saying, would you help me through it? And I said, yeah, what do you want to do? I don't know what I can help you with, but yeah, I'll talk you through day-to-day construction and where it needs to change. I've done that. And I've had mentors as well. I have throughout my life. I think I've had 3 that weren't family. That's probably the best way of saying it. Throughout my career, I have had 3 people that I called on when I was struggling mentally to try and crack something. To crack an innovation, not only is it financially tasking, it can be mentally tasking as well. When you get, and it gets harder as the closer you get to your goal, it gets a lot harder. When you've nearly cracked it, you're spending more and more time and more effort on it. You do need somebody just to sound off against and to give you a bit of advice, or even put her arm around you and go, yeah, go on, carry on. I do it now with what I'm doing now with transform. I get them down. When I'm trying to change an industry, you ain't going to do it a little bloke yourself sat in Bristol. You got to go and get friends with the politicians. You got to go and get friends with the change makers, right? And if they don't want to chat to you, you got to go back another day and have another go. It's good to chat to you and go back, and it takes years. But finally, you can do it. If they know you ain't going away, they might chat to you, and that's where I'm at. They know I'm not going away. They might say a few things about me, but they know I'm not going away. And that's what it's all about. You can't make change on your own. You can start change, but you need
you need a movement.
Impact. You need others to join you. You need others to be on the same page as you.
So what does the future hold for Paul Richards and GUR Build? Like, where are you going with all this?
So part of these catapult networks. 2 years ago this May, I had a meeting with senior officials at one of the catapult networks, and they told me about what their vision was for Liverpool. So what they wanted to do to transform Liverpool, regenerate Liverpool, what the housing industry would look like in Liverpool. Now, I don't know if you've been to Liverpool. Got a lot of flat land, easy to build on from my perspective. I thought I could bang this out. And then they ghosted me, which is a bugger, which is something that you got as an innovator, you've got to get used to it. They ghosted me. And I got quite umpty about it. And I went back to him and said, look, what's happening? He said, well, until government makes his mind up, because at this scale, it is political. At this scale, unfortunately, change is political. It's no good me changing how I just built a house down around the corner. Nobody cares. When you're trying to make industry change, you've got to try and befriend the change makers. You're a change maker, but they're the ones who write the check. They're the ones that can say yeah or no. And it is personalities. You've got to try and befriend them-ish. They're not on my wavelength. They could be quite steely-eyed government people. They don't. You could be passionate about house building. They ain't. They're looking at what it's going to cost and what the the bigger effect is. So to get them to come to a meeting and sit with you and spend time with you is pretty hard. But once you do it and you show them why, they are usually thankful. I did it about 2 weeks ago with Future Skills. So there's going to be an organisation set up called Skills England. So I took the guy that is going to be in charge of Skills England, and I showed him what the future looks like for everybody. And he was gobsmacked. and it's not anything I've done. It's my link is the housing side of it all. The change I'm doing in housing. I took him and showed him something that is the change of everything. It's not my story to tell. I think it's going to come out in the June state in the summer in June when she talks about what she's going to announce in June. It's going to come out. So I'm going to leave it for her to say, but I can just tell you now, England and the UK, we got some talent here, and I think we're going to get the right support, and we're going to show the rest of the world just how clever we are. And I really think we are. I've seen it, so I've actually seen it. Oh my God, we're good. So it's I'm desperate to tell everyone, mate. I am, but I can't. It's not for me to tell.
Well, with that, I'm going to throw a few curveballs at you, if you don't mind, Paul. Knowing what you know now, what would you do different?
Oh, I ask myself all the time, mate, what would I do different? I say what I do different, but I won't do anything different.
You wouldn't change anything?
I wouldn't change, no. I wish I wasn't me sometimes. I wish I was some of my mates. Some of my mates have a lot happier life than me, but I wouldn't. But then sometimes it's the wins. It's when I did something 2 weeks ago I should be extremely proud of. And again, I'll come back and tell you about it. I did something 2 weeks ago that is game-changingly clever, and I got the support. I got pledged the support. So let's see if it comes. June, if my bank still looks the same in June, they didn't give me it. If it looks a bit different in June, then I'll be a lot happier. But they'll come back in June and ask me.
You have to come back in the podcast then, if that's the case. And look, give me a favorite book, or give the readers a good favorite book. Like, it doesn't have to be business related.
Karma Sutra is good reading. I don't know if you've read it.
No, what is it?
The Karma Sutra. I'm dyslexic, so I'm not very good. I look at pictures, so I'll leave that one. I was joking with that one. No, I don't really read. I'm dyslexic. I struggle to read. So I can read something. I can read it 3 times over, and it don't sink in. I can read a page. It's sunk in. It's gone. So I don't really read. I like watching TV. I'm more interested in what people are doing. I like art. I like seeing people make stuff. Where it could be, I know it's daft, where it could be from sewing. I like watching the TV programs, the sewing thing on the telly, because again, that's fabrication. I like the pottery guy when he's crying because he's got passion. And it's like, come on, where's our construction programs like this? Showing the game changers in construction, showing some of the people that are on their knees in the puddle, but they're still trying to build something different. I love that to me. So yeah, I like watching TV. When I get chance, spending time with the wife when I get chance. I'm going to be busy. Within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be busy, and I can't wait.
You're not going to be too busy to give us the links to your website and how people can get in touch with you. So what is the message for people who want, that they know why they want to get in touch with you, because they want to be ahead of the curve in terms of construction innovation? But how do they get in touch with you, Paul?
I do most of my stuff on LinkedIn. So if you want to join me on LinkedIn, please join me on LinkedIn. So I share quite openly on LinkedIn. The reason why I do it is because if you don't like it, tell me. Part of a learning journey is when somebody says that's a load of rubbish, and I say, well, tell me why it's rubbish, because I might learn something. And that for me, I'll take criticism. And I spoke with one of my guys this morning, and we used to do exhibitions all around the world. And what we would do, we would say to somebody, I'd point at it, I say, how do you reckon we made that? And they guess about how we make it. And it wasn't. I say, actually, it wasn't. That's a bloody good way you told me of trying. I might give that a try next time. And it's engaging with people. And I think the future is about engaging more with people. And that's why I thanks for inviting me on this podcast, Gavin, because hopefully somebody out there might say, oh, yeah, I might be interested. Maybe I could do something, because really the future is what somebody else is going to do. And if I can encourage somebody else to have a go, then that's it.
Yeah, but I think your passion, your energy is unquestionable, and I think it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, because you really spoke really passionately and really sort of put in the energy of exactly, you're living the experience of what you're trying to achieve. And I think what came across for me in the podcast today, and I'm sure with the viewers and listeners, is you need to be open to change. We can't sit still.
Somebody said to me, what would you advise? I say, give something a go. Yeah, then you've got your own viewpoint on whether it's right or wrong for you. If somebody's over here saying, oh, I've got a new Wonder trowel, well, give it a go and then chuck it in the back of the van with the rest of the junk. But the reality of it is, give it a go so you can make your own mind up. Is it for you? And then, like we were talking about earlier, it's very difficult and let me just end on this actually. You said to me, how can SMEs get involved in it? I'm starting a program where they can, specifically for SMEs. I believe the future is by arming the SME businesses out there with the right finance and the right tools. That's it. The right funding. Look, it's hard. Construction's hard. Let's change everything. Let's not just change the bits. Let's not just change the bricks and the plaster. Let's change the way they fund it. Let's support them. Let's take some of the pressures off them that free them up to build more. Their job, they're good at building. Let's not hold them back because of financial constraints. Let's not hold them back because of some bureaucrat thinks it's clever to hold them back. Let's free them up. Let's help them build. And that's what Owns England's about. Owns England should be there. I think there's 1,600 people work at Owns England. Why are we in the trouble then? Why can't we build houses? If there's 1,600 people there paid to help you, why are we struggling? So let's make it easier.
Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Gaffer. You're definitely coming back on another pod.
You might play this back saying, "No, you ain't coming."
Yeah, if people want to reach out to you, LinkedIn is probably best. GUR Build, we'll put in links into the show for your website as well. And keep doing what you're doing, please, because we need more Paul Richards out there that are, taking their head out of the game and having a bigger picture of what the sustainable product looks like for the construction industry. And if you can make it better, which is what you're trying to achieve, and give that blueprint to the next generation, I think we're in a good place.
Well, thanks, Gav. I appreciate it.
Have a great day, Paul. Thanks very much for being on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much.
Hello, Gaffers. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We love every one of the guests that we have, but in order to bring on more great guests, we'd love to build the channel with you. So hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's create a really great community where we bring in better and better guests for you to deliver great content and great pieces of information that you can take back into your business.